PlayStation's financial reports are now out. We have the recent updates about the PlayStation business. Some interesting stuff to come out of this. PlayStation is definitely focused on growing their ecosystem with multiple different devices out there, as well as keeping the cross-generational platforms going. PS4, PS5, PS6, all may be in play in the future as we look forward to the next generation of PlayStation. So we had the PlayStation financial reports come out. It is an interesting report here. PlayStation, of course, is doing well. They're selling consoles. People are spending money on the platform itself. But there's some interesting information that has come out of this report, specifically on the platform future and the business of PlayStation. One of the things people are wondering about here going forward is, will they be bringing more games over to PC? And when will the PlayStation 6 be coming out? And is it going to be coming out relatively soon? Well, as of right now, it looks like it will still be a number of years before the PS6 does come out, but it does seem like PlayStation is banking on multi-platform in the sense of games crossing over to multiple generations and onto PC to keep them going forward here as they prepare for the next generation of PlayStation. In terms of the PS6, right now is top of Sony's priorities, as Sony's CEO is saying this specifically during the business segment with investors. Hideaki Nishino, the president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, spoke about the console hardware being more of a priority than cloud streaming, stating that even though cloud streaming is growing well from a technical standpoint, the end-to-end network stability is not in their control. And there's also the challenge of cloud streaming costing higher per playtime than a traditional console. It also says here specifically that cloud streaming can provide players with a new option to access content. However, they believe that most players would rather experience gaming through local execution than depend on the network conditions, and adds that they were able to create a large ecosystem of players across generations. PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, hence there is huge interest in their strategy for the PlayStation 6. So I agree with him on a couple of things there. I know for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, would much rather depend on downloading the games natively, playing it there, rather than the network conditions that can be spotty at times, I guess, depending on where you live. I know for me with Xbox Cloud Gaming right now, it has been very, very good across the board, whether that is via my internet connection on Wi-Fi or wired in at my house, or out on the go when I have my phone and I have my controller connected to the network. It's been working very, very well. So cloud gaming is definitely increasing. The question is, how much growth is there in this segment? From what we have seen and heard going forward, especially when you think about Xbox and the ABK acquisition, that was the biggest concern, because cloud gaming to the business right now seemingly has some of the biggest growth potential. And if you remember back with the ABK acquisition, that was some of the pushback that Xbox would have, basically a monopoly in that with the purchase of ABK. So it is definitely an area that needs to continue to be focused on. I think they will, and I think it will continue to grow, but they are looking right now that they've locked people in from PS4 to PS5 going over to PS6, that they can just use those users going forward to continue to be successful in their business. Remember when Phil Spencer talked about how losing the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One generation was the worst generation to lose, because a lot of people locked in their digital library, and you are kind of seeing that play out here. My biggest question is, when it comes to PS4, there's still so many people playing on the PS4. How many of them are actually playing a multitude of different games on that platform? How many people are just playing things like Call of Duty and Fortnite? Because I feel like from the business perspective, a user who's simply playing Fortnite on a PS4 is not a very valuable user to companies like PlayStation. And we do know now as well that they have confirmed that PS5 actually has more monthly players than the PS4. So PS5 now is ahead. We're 5 years into this generation. It took them 5 years to surpass the PlayStation 4 numbers. And it looks like they're not going to be making a PS6 until 2028. So they're trying to get as many people transform over to PS4 to PS5 in order to, at some point, cut off the PlayStation 4. I would assume that would be their goal. They say this year, they show off the numbers, the multi-generational ecosystem and growing monetization. Specifically, you can see here life to date spend per console is a 669 million on the PlayStation 4, comparatively to 846 on the PlayStation 5, which it's now surpassed that. They also note that there are a total of 124 million monthly active users compared to a figure of 97 million that were reported last year. And it included a slide showing a number of monthly active users on PS4 and PS5 was around 49 million each, making for a 50-50 profit. And then CEO Hideki Nishino says the PlayStation 5 offers the best way for players to experience our content, and as such, its players base has continued to grow. These players are highly engaged, spending more on content and services than in prior generations. However, the PlayStation 4 remains an important access point for existing players to experience our content and services, and we remain committed to serving them. So when you think about the cross-gen stuff, people are fed up at this point with cross-generational games. They want PS4 and Xbox One to be completely cut off so that at some point these consoles that have been out for 5 years can hopefully truly see their full realization. I think there's some games that have really pushed these consoles, but a lot of games just do not. And a lot of that can be attributed to it being cross-generational. So PS4 is here for a while, potentially all the way until 2028, which is kind of crazy to think about because the PS4 and the Xbox One, both when they launched in 2013, were already not very great, not very powerful. We're going on here over 10 plus years that these consoles are going to be supported. So wild stuff there. And it's because there's a lot of people on PS4 that just have not crossed over. And you think about the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2, you'll see the Nintendo Switch last for many, many more years because of the amount of people that did purchase that console. Now, coming to the PlayStation 6, they did talk about this. And he says, while discussing the upcoming PlayStation 6 during the same meeting, Nishino noted that Sony's console business had evolved into a multifaceted platform with a significant portion still on PS4, saying we now have a large ecosystem of highly engaged players across both the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4 generation. So naturally, therefore, there's a huge interest in our next generation console strategy. While we cannot share further details at this stage, the future of the platform is top of mind. We are committed to exploring a new and enhanced way for players to engage with our content and services. So nothing really on the PS6 other than they're looking at it right now. They're exploring it. What are they going to do? And the question is, when it comes to multi-platform strategy, when it comes to putting games onto PC and potentially other places, whether that is Xbox or the Nintendo Switch, is PlayStation going to do any of this? We know PC is a big thing for them. We just saw Stellar Blade completely skyrocket when it just launched onto PC. Imagine if they would have launched that on day one. I think numbers would have been even higher and they would have made a lot more money a lot quicker. So locking games only to the PlayStation console is not a good strategy, and PlayStation definitely knows this. They have talked about this a bit more here, a little bit conflicting in some of the quotes that did come out, but specifically Herman Hulse talks about the multi-platform to PC, the ports to PC, and he says they're being really thoughtful about picking which games port to PC. And specifically, this is what he said. He's asked about the industry trend of companies moving towards multi-platform gaming and how Sony will protect the value of PlayStation consoles. And Hull says, you're quite right that we're continuously exploring new ways for players to interact with their franchises. It's important to realize that we're really thoughtful about bringing our franchises off console to reach new audiences, and that we're taking a very measured, very deliberate approach in doing that. Particularly on the single player side, our tentpole titles, they're such a differentiator. He adds here saying, the point of differentiation, I should say, for the PlayStation consoles, that they will showcase the performance and the quality of the hardware. So we want to ensure that players get the best experiences from these titles. We're very thoughtful about how and if and how we bring these titles to other platforms. And Hideki Nishino said the platform holder would continue to monitor player patterns and behaviors to ensure that we serve them appropriately. And continues here saying, we think that competition in the business is healthy and pushes us to innovate. There are multiple participants who together drive the overall gaming industry. And while there are new engagement models being explored, we ultimately think this is a good thing. However, as I mentioned earlier, we are confident and committed to our current strategy, and there isn't an urgent need for us to pivot. So I think you kind of have somewhat of conflicting or somewhat different thoughts on this. I mean, the reality is, first party games from PlayStation, they're all going to end up on PC. It's just when are they going to end up on PC? The single player experiences, I guess they are still going to be waiting for those before they do put them on PC, 6 months, a year, or whatever it is. It'll launch on the PlayStation console first, then it will end up on PC at a later date, as we've seen with their previous single player experiences. Multiplayer games coming from PlayStation, if they ever get any of these out that are successful, because they've canceled so many. The marathons coming out, and who knows what's going to happen with that. Those will all be launching day and date on to PC. And that's basically what this, I guess, corporate speak kind of is saying as they read in between the lines. And then they're going to monitor how many sales are they going to get from their single player experiences on the PlayStation console. And if it isn't enough, if development costs keep going up, they will pivot. They will be launching those games onto PC significantly earlier. And that's kind of what I'm taking from that quote as well. And Hideki Nishino comes up with a new theme for the PlayStation business, which is very familiar sounding if you compare it to things that Xbox has said in the past. And he says this: the PlayStation business is console and beyond. We are building on the strengths of the PlayStation platform and PlayStation Studio. And finally, the Switch 2 is out, and Sony comments on the Switch 2, and they seem to not really be afraid of the Nintendo Switch 2, even though this thing has sold 3.5 million units within 4 days of its launch, and it's going to be another juggernaut in the console space. Nintendo absolutely killing it already. But they say here the Switch 2, Sony says PS5 performance is required for great experiences on a big screen, and that it isn't concerned about the impact Nintendo Switch 2 could have on its platform, believes PS5 low performance is required. Now, to be fair, yes, you're not getting the Xbox Series X PS5 level of performance when you put your Switch 2 in dock mode, which is something that I have a Switch 2, so I've been experiencing this playing a game like Cyberpunk, but it is pretty good for the adding that extra benefit of being able to take it out of the dock and bring it with you in portable mode and play it on a handheld device. I think for a lot of people, that option of having it portable with you seamlessly on the go outweighs the extra power you're getting from the at-home console of the PS5 and of the Xbox Series X. And that is the major reason why the Nintendo Switch does so well in terms of its sales. If the Nintendo Switch came out or it was called something else and it was the current power in dock mode and it was just an at-home console, I don't think it would do nearly as well as what it's doing. So focusing on the great experiences on a big screen, you're still getting those on the Switch 2. I guess also depends on the type of game you're playing, but it has the added advantage of portability. And that's why I think you're seeing Xbox get into the handheld space, and you are going to be seeing more than likely PlayStation as well get into the handheld space. So that was some of the interesting stuff that I thought came out of this financial report. I just wanted to talk about it. I am going to end the video there. Let me know your thoughts on all of these things. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.